Welcome to the non-dual lectionary for the sixth Sunday of Easter, year A. And today we pick up with where we left off last week with the reading from John, just continuing what Jesus is telling the disciples. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. I think it actually provides a really good continuation from last week. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a little while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you will also will live. On that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me, and those who love me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them. So, same sort of starting pivot, perspective pivot as last week, right? We had two. The one is the sense of belief. There actually isn't a talk about belief in here, but the other, who is speaking here, right? And the traditional meaning is, Jesus, the person, Son of God, the individual. But I think the big perspective shift is, Jesus as uh, speaking from true nature, right? From his non-dual manifestation and recognizing his true nature and the true nature of everyone else. And then that just opens everything up. And especially that idea of speaking from the true nature, recognizing his true nature and the true nature of everyone else, right? The non-dual, non-separation manifestation of reality here. Because then everything, I mean, the language here, again, it's in poetry, and it's in the context of the messianic gospels, right? So Jesus is here, in a way, seeing the messianic, um, the messianic message fulfilled in his life, right? But not separate from everybody else's life either. Then, so first we've got um, recognizing that, I will ask the Father, he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. An advocate, Holy Spirit, the notes here say also could be translated as helper or comforter, Spirit of truth, abides with you and he will be in you. Um, the world doesn't see or know him, right? The idea of the world here, right? Not necessarily being like separate from, heaven or some other realm, but more like the world being a stand-in for the usual way of seeing things, right? My separate self, your separate self, and saying that operation doesn't see or know the Spirit of truth, but he abides with you, he'll be with you. I am coming to you. You'll no longer see me, but you'll see me because I live, you also will live. Again, we're just, you know, um, I mean, you just keep going. I mean, I'm not saying much here because you can just read it yourself, right? And again, once you take that perspective shift, it's just sitting right here. I'm in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. I mean, and that one we can tease out just a little bit, I think, right? In a really, I think, elucidating way, which is, if we think of the Father as like the real ground sense of being here, right? In a way like almost not yet manifest, right? Like Jesus is like the Father manifest in a way, right? And recognizing that, oh, like that I'm not separate from that because the unmanifest non-dual is what makes up the the manifest non-dual, right? Um, it's like you know, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, right? And but the idea of the emptiness there being the Father, the ground, right? So in that sense, right, like I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. The you and I are in a sense, like you can read that as like the manifest non-dual, whereas the Father is more of like that ground, unmanifest, not separate from the manifest, but still in a way like not quite like there's a different flavor to it. How about that? Um, so all of this again, right? Just this language of like, this, I mean, quite frankly, it's hard to find a better word than like mystical language, right? Even though that word can be used in lots of different ways too. Just this, this language of non-separation, this language of like, again, you and me and I and you, none of this is pointing to like Jesus is separate out there creating a new dualism, right? This is like some of the core non-dual, like, hey, like a teacher passing on to students, not as a teaching, right? But as like ascending almost, right? Like in last week's the part right before this, right, is you'll do even greater works than me. Um, but here, just like, hey, you can recognize this too, right? Like even though I in this form won't be with you, right? I won't leave you orphan. The Spirit is coming. Um, and also, because I live, you'll live, and the I here again, not an individual person, right? Not a separate, you know, physical being, but also not separate from that physical being there. So, again, like I kind of am just repeating what's in the in the gospel itself here. And like I said last week, it's almost like the perspective shift is the non-dual perspective shift, right? And it both is like required before it's required for understanding this, and it helps take the perspective shift also by reading it. So it helps point to the perspective shift, and the perspective shift itself can help glean out what's in here, right? Which points back to itself. There's almost this like chicken egg thing. Or I like to think of like a hamster wheel, right? Like the only way off the hamster wheel is just to get off the wheel. And a lot of spiritual practices or all psychological practices, almost any self-help kind of thing, right, is about like how to better be on the wheel. But Jesus is just like, hey, this is what it's like off the wheel. Which, like as always in every great teaching, he's just pointing directly at like, hey, look, this is what is, and if you can see it now, right? And if not, like here's what's coming in the future. But there's no barrier to seeing it now. So why not see what is now?